Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, plenty to get into on this Monday. Iowa Week is here. How does Nebraska respond? How do you respond on Black Friday with Nebraska and Iowa? Pretty gut-wrenching, and it's been par for the course the last several weeks. But Saturday, a special twist to you, the fan base, with just how that thing went down. A new name, new smoke. We will dive into wild card or wishful thinking when it comes to some of the names in this coaching carousel associated with Nebraska. Numbers to get in. You can join us today on Hail Varsity Radio, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Watch the show. Follow along on the stream, the Hail Varsity Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. StreamYard is alive and well there. Also, ESPN Lincoln Facebook streaming there. And the ESPN Lincoln Twitter is where you can watch the show. You can email Chris at hailvarsity.com and follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, or find Elijah Herbel on Twitter at Herbel Essence. Well, for better or for worse, this season gets to an end on Friday, and it's a chance to there's several forks in the road here, Elijah. There's, let's limp into the offseason if you're a Nebraska fan, ruining Iowa's season. Not likely, but still a choice. There's play well but get hurt in defeat, or there's it's Thanksgiving weekend, so let's just check out and go through the motions and get blown out Friday on by Iowa on Black Friday. Those are three doors. There's a prize for everyone. And then shortly thereafter, presumably, like we all know what's going on in Trev's office, there's set to be a coaching announcement. I do believe that will happen next weekend or a week from today. But something will finally put an end to this season. This is what's real. This has been the craziest season of about a decade's worth of you can't believe the season you just endured as a fan. So we can get into how Nebraska responds a little bit. Plenty of Iowa thoughts coming this week. Scott Docterman will be with us. We'll figure out some basketball as well. And we'll wish you a happy Thanksgiving before we head to Iowa City for a live show Friday noon to 2 from the Marriott in Iowa City. So if you are making the trip, weather should be good. You're invited to have a cocktail. I'm not paying for it, but you can sure have one. You're going to need one before and after, as we're at the Marriott right near Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City, noon to 2. So I want to see you there. Your weekend okay? Saturday was hell for Nebraska fans. Sunday worse for Denver fans.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
right there.
It's a loaded question. How's your weekend? Well, on Saturday, I got to spend my whole day watching the Huskers blow it late again, and then talk about that in a post-game show, and then try to recover Saturday night before waking up on Sunday morning. Having my fantasy team get absolutely murdered. I put up a total of 50 points this week, which was the lowest scoring in the league by a wide margin. And then I got to watch my Broncos blow a lead as well. So that was no fun. And then today, I got to watch the United States men's national team blow a late lead to Wales. So it was three.
At least it was a draw, though.
Yeah, but in that group, you need every point you can get with, playing England on Friday. And I'm not sure if Schmidt, you're familiar with the World Cup group stages. What happens is
you need to explain this to me.
It's a group
like I'm four.
A group of four. The United States in it with Wales, England, and Iran.
Beautiful country.
Wales?
Yes.
Oh, for sure. The crazy language. Beautiful country. And I like a couple of the Welsh players. Not today, but for the most part. I like Ben Davis, I like Gareth Bale.
I really like that Iowa linebacker. Not Friday, but
that's how it is. Yeah. Anyway,
that's pretty good.
A terrible challenge late by Walker Zimmerman allowed Wales to get a draw and get 1 point back. So now the United States and Wales both 3 points back from England in the group. England got a big point today. So what that means is the United States now no longer has room for error. They're going to need a win against Iran next weekend. And against England, you're probably going to need a draw. I think England's in the driver's seat to go win the group. The top 2 teams in each group advance 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 0 points for a loss. The United States was in position to get all 3 points today until they blew it late. So 3 straight days of watching the teams that I follow the most blow leads late in a football game and lose. So that's how my weekend was.
So that leads to the topic of discouragement.
I'm there. I am there.
You are there. Matt chimes in on the StreamYard. I have so much confidence I volunteered to work on Black Friday. So, Matt, don't blame you there. Make some extra holiday cash there.
Hey, me too. But my job is talking about the Huskers.
Is this. Elijah's going to start lobbying for hazard pay. Is what it comes down to. Emotion. We're going to get you an emotional support dog, and I've got 2 you can pick from at my house, and then we're going to just go that route. That's how we're going to do it.
I need an emotional support bottle is what I need after this season.
Don't you drink for joy, not for sorrow, is what I'm going to tell you.
Thanks.
But listen, let's start off with the carousel, because that's more interesting than what happened Saturday. We did 2.5 hours of reaction. Forgive us there, but it was another, Wisconsin found a way. Despite being not a good Wisconsin team, they earned it. But the latest is this, and we've lobbed text messages and phone calls to people we trust. And the name that popped up 3 weeks ago, does that sound right? 3 weeks ago, Bronco Mendenhall. Mm-hmm. And we talked quite a bit with Coach Barnett about Bronco Mendenhall. He's had a chance to cover him. A couple of other folks I know that are in network TV for college football have also had a chance to either coach with or cover Bronco, and really high-level coach. I think Colorado is chasing him quite a bit as well. But Bronco's the name. Bronco's proven. And listen, there's all sorts of reaction to names. Urban Meyer either draws a yes, please, or hell no. Still, with 3 national championships and some Nebraska fans ready to overlook the baggage for the wins. I'm not judging. I'm just laying out. And some Nebraska fans want nothing to do. That is your dude could get it flipped and you could win pretty soon.
It's interesting to see how whenever the results in the field get worse, the amount of Husker fans that are out there that are overwilling to look Urban Meyer's baggage. Because think about how loud the Urban Meyer cries were after the Oklahoma game. The results on the field were bad, and then you go and you get back-to-back wins after that coming off the bye week. And
we don't need Urban.
And the Urban Meyer name starts quieting back down. People go, well, look at these other names. There's other good coaches out there. You don't need a guy with all the baggage. And then the results dip again, and immediately people start going back to Urban Meyer's the only guy that can fix this. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just kind of interesting to see.
It absolutely is flipped. Who's kicking us off?
This is the inverse relationship. We got Chris on the line, though.
Chris, thanks for calling, bud. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Great show. Hopefully we learned something from Minnesota. We have recruited a lot better players in Minnesota. We should have a lot better line than Minnesota on offense. I know that's not reality. But Minnesota was just able to cram the ball down Iowa's throat. They didn't score like they should. Iowa just has that voodoo going on. And in fact, I predict a 4-3 Iowa win. It'll be 3-0 until about 5 minutes left, and I'm not sure how they get the two safeties, but they're getting 2 safeties to finish out the game. and it'll be a 4-3 win. Iowa might not even have positive yardage. I'm not sure. They may have like minus 17 yards of offense, and which will be barely less than we'll have. But anyways, hopefully we learn a little something from Minnesota, and we can try and run the ball, stick with it, just do it. And I do have a question.
Sure.
What do you make of Casey throwing Anthony Grant under the bus?
As far as running forward.
Yeah, because they were saying that on the broadcast too, that he was kind of avoiding, the small creases that were there.
I think this with Anthony Grant. I think Anthony Grant has been so frustrated that there's been zero daylight. I don't think Anthony Grant is one dude that does not avoid contact, so it's not a business decision. I think
he's patient, though.
I think Anthony Grant is like, this offense is so bad, I feel like I got to do it myself.
I got to go make a play.
I got to go make a play for this offense and this team, and I'm going to try and hit a home run every time I touch the football. I think that's the mindset.
Now, Ramir, where this might work in Ramir's favor, is Ramir is not a patient runner like Anthony Grant. So I generally like that about Anthony. If he doesn't see a good lane, he'll be patient. Ramir doesn't do that. He's got to hit the hole that's, so it might benefit us to have Ramir, because if he's got a crease and he gets through it, then that could be a big play.
It might benefit Nebraska to call and be effective calling run plays. You know what I mean? That's the truth of this whole thing is Nebraska is going to need to have success running the football, and they are so inconsistent at doing that. There's not a lot of trust with the OC or want to with the OC when it comes to running the football. It's a necessary evil that he's admitted. I got to run the football in the Big Ten. He says it out loud, but his preference is to throw it, and his preference is the only way this thing's going to work is throwing the football because you can't run it consistently enough. I can't trust it. So,
and we played the best secondary in the Big Ten West this week. So throwing the ball is problematic. They might want to remember that Trey Palmer ran a 60-yard end around like 6 games ago.
No, there's a lot to go to. Chris, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate you tuning in. Yep, good stuff from Chris.
Well, the thing is, it's not just the best secondary in the Big Ten West you're facing with Iowa.
Defense.
It's probably the best all-around defense. Their interior defensive line is pretty good. They have a couple of good linebackers that fly all around the field, make plays everywhere. It's a tall task.
They're insanely good.
And Chris did also say the fact that he thinks Iowa might have negative 17 yards of offense. If you've watched the past 3-4 weeks of Iowa football, their offense has actually taken a step forward. Is it good? No.
Better.
But it's better. It's good enough for them to start reeling off some wins, and as Chris said, put themselves in a position to go potentially win a Big Ten West crown with a win against Nebraska on Friday. So
think about where they were and where they're at now, and they were buried. They were dead. And the defense was always there. They had a rock fight against Illinois. What they did in Minneapolis is insane. To force 2 fourth-quarter turnovers, to force a fumble, and then get a pick. 2 red zone situations where Minnesota's about to put this thing away. And by the way, when's the first and last time on this defense anyone's ran for 2 bills? Mo was doing it. Mm-hmm. Mo was great. And Iowa Russ emails in chris@hailvarsity.com. 2 words, Mo Ibrahim. Minnesota didn't run the ball effectively when Mo wasn't in the game. You get the combination of that running back with that offensive line, and they can do special things with an average quarterback, but he is a special running back. And there's where it was flipped. It was the Iowa defense, and Iowa missed a couple of plays downfield as well, and they still found a way to win. That's what this next hire has got to be. We can keep throwing in open phones all first hour here. We're going to just kind of block that off. We'll spend time with Coach McBride and Jay Moore in hour 2. And we can, talk fit or name or philosophy or who you like, who you hate. That doesn't matter. whoever it's going to be, has got to know their identity, be good at it, and then just grow it. Keep growing it, and it's got to be somebody that can be here to pour the concrete and build the house. And if they're a little older versus younger, so be it. But just get this thing poured the right way. And that's really the gist of it. Whoever it's going to be has got to have that understanding. It can't be bells and whistles and sexy and high-flying. It's got to be just boring and stable. I mean, it's got to be meat and potatoes. It's got to be development. It's got to be also some splash recruiting with some special guys that can win matchups for you. So the wish list is out there, and it's interesting to see where Trev will go. Who's the wild card? Who's wishful thinking? We'll keep chewing on that. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to your phone calls, your emails, as Hail Varsity continues.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Open phones, plenty of your reaction with the upcoming Black Friday game, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, or just in general, the coaching search. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. We'll get to your emails. Steven tweets in, Whipple is Whipple, and Nebraska won't run the ball as long as he's calling plays. Jeff and Matt both say, look, leave Whipple and Lincoln to finish the turkey as you get ready. Who's on the horn with us?
Got Paul on the line.
Paul, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. One thing I think we're all just going to have to face the reality of, no matter who we're looking for, no matter who we may have actually settled on, we may say, hey, Matt Rule, you're the man. We want you so bad. We are possibly not the first choice of whoever we want as our man. He may be saying, thank you, Nebraska, but I need to find out what's going to happen at Auburn before I commit to coming to Nebraska.
No, I think Trev's I would be very surprised if Trev doesn't understand that. I mean, he's had...
I'm sure Trev understands. It's the fan base that possibly doesn't get it.
I think there's more and more Nebraska fans, Paul, that get that Nebraska is in such a deep hole right now that it's a tough ask, especially with the changing setup of the Big Ten, and you've not been good for 6 years.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you haven't gone to a bowl in 6 years, so... It's difficult, and the recruiting base is good as in-state talent has gotten and continues to develop. I mean, it's as good as it's been in a long time. Yeah. It's still not the Sun Belt or the Ohio Valley or California. I mean, it's still it's not.
I think it'll be real interesting to see whether or not some of those other big-name programs, whether they settle with who they're going with before Nebraska gets a chance to get theirs.
Well, there's pros and cons to every gig. Boulder's forgotten, sweet area. Boulder's kind of a forgotten spot. They're in a tailspin. Auburn is very lucrative, and you can absolutely win there. But if you don't win as long as they think you should win, they've kind of pulled a 2.0 at Nebraska where they've run out some really good coaches, specifically Gus. And
I'm going to be I'm going to be on suicide watch where it turns out that we're actually lower in prestige than Colorado or Arizona State.
I don't think they are.
Tell me that we haven't fallen that far.
I don't think they are. I think between looming NCAA sanctions at Arizona State and Colorado's no one cares, I think Nebraska is very safe. Are you higher than Georgia Tech? I would think, but what do I know? Thanks for the call, Paul. Appreciate you jumping in, 466-3776. I think you're right there. I think Wisconsin is settled. They haven't announced it, but I think Leonard shored that up by getting to a bowl game. The question is this. If you're on the Kansas train, if you're on the Kansas train, why would you leave what you built at Kansas State if you're Chris Kleiman? You just left North Dakota after an incredible run. You not only maintained, you exceeded. Then you go to K-State against popular. Mafia was wanting Bill Jr. or whatever the kid's name is. You go in there and then you flip it around, and you're really, really pretty good this year. You got a chance to win a Big 12 championship. Leipold, there's the world of football is hinging on what you do. They're going to do stadium expansion. They're going to give you a boatload more money. And you've done really well in a tough situation where that was the worst program in football, and now your finish hasn't been great, but you started 5-0, and for God's sake, you had game day there. You're going to finish 6-6, 6-7, 7-5. I mean, it could go different ways.
The question is, do you want to leave the former worst team in Power 5 to go to the current worst team in Power 5?
And the only reason you do that is because your connection here.
And I don't believe that the talent at Nebraska is the worst in Power 5, but I can argue pretty easily that the results in the field over the past 5 years are the worst in the Power 5.
The development's been among the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, coaches always say, well, I've got a really good player here. My job's not to screw him up. There's been a lot of screwing up that's been going on. And the right guy can fix it. Urban could fix it. Leipold, Kleiman could fix it. Do they want to leave this soon to where they've been? And as a brand, it's an absolute no-brainer, yes. But brands are just that. They're brands. It's prestige, but it's going to be a pain in the backside to get where they need to go. Do you relish that? They're both competitors, so yeah. I mean, they've left their comfort zones many times over. Do they want to leave where they're at now? Because what they're doing is super impressive where they're at. And as we talk, they've got a chance in future years to get in a playoff. That sounds crazy, but if you really get it rolling in Lawrence, it's not crazy to say Kansas can win a Big 12 championship. They did it under Mangino. It's not crazy to say K-State can win a Big 12 championship because they've done it before, and they've been really impressive this year.
And to me, I know we're going to get to the phone lines here in just a second. Bob's been patiently waiting for us, but it almost comes down to what kind of egos these guys have. You're not going to be
I think it's more about being a competitor than an ego.
And I'm kind of using those two interchangeably, but it comes down to, do you want to prove to everybody that you are one of the best coaches in college football? That's the question it becomes. Do you want to reach that upper echelon of coaches? Because I don't think you're going to reach it at Kansas State or at Kansas, but you can sure as hell get a lot closer if you're going and you're resurrecting Nebraska. Then you're going to reach that point of people saying, you know what, this is a dude. This guy's a legit coach, one of the top in the country. He not only turned around Kansas or Kansas State or whatever, but he went and turned around Nebraska too, who was, as we just mentioned, the worst Power 5 team over the past 5 years in terms of record. So that's what it comes down to me. Are you going to be betting on yourself? Are you going to have that ego to say, you know what, I think I'm one of the best coaches in the country and I want to prove it to everybody else? Or are you going to say, you know what, I'm fat and happy. I've made the move up from North Dakota State or made the move up from Buffalo, and I'm now making millions of dollars. I'm in a well-positioned spot at either Kansas or Kansas State, and I'm going to be happy here and raise my family and get my money that I deserve. What is the question? What's going on in the back of these guys' minds?
Here is what's got to be the connector. Whoever it is, to leave where they're at and they've had success at. Some of them want to just get out. Doran, right? What has he hit his ceiling? Has Campbell hit his ceiling at their respective spots at NC State and Iowa State? What you got to hope for with a really good football coach is, dude, it's Nebraska. That's what a lot of the fan base thinks, and a lot of old school football fans still, dude, it's Nebraska. Doesn't mean much to some out there now, 35 and under, okay? But the legend, and this sounds like straight up crazy propaganda, here's a glass of Kool-Aid, but it's got to be, well, it's Nebraska. I mean, that's got to be the response from the coach where their wheels start turning about how great it can be because it once was incredible. And to be at that program, man, needs to have been a goal for them when they got into coaching. Man, someday it'd be really awesome to coach at Nebraska. You hear Coach McBride talk about that all the time. When he was a young coach, man, Nebraska and Devaney got it really, I mean, that's got to be the reckoning, really. Man, it's Nebraska. I want to be the guy to flip that over. That's how you got the last guy. Come fix this, dude. And it's got to be that same mentality.
If you turn Nebraska around, bring them back to national relevancy, you're now a rock star.
Just win.
But I know just win. but
just win. Hold on to leads. Run the football. Worry about the gravy down the road. Just find a way to get to a bowl game right now. And that's honestly, I never thought I'd be that guy. That's where I'm at right now. Look at the guys, look at the roster, look at the stars, look at the evaluation of no star or 4-star or somewhere in between, and coach them up and do well. The guys that are on staff right now have done a good job of keeping this team engaged and coaching them up, right? Shouldn't have gone that way the way it did against Wisconsin. Shouldn't have gone that way against Minnesota. It shouldn't have, right? But it did. It absolutely did, because you didn't have enough gas in the tank because of complimentary football. Bob, thanks for hanging on. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, from everything you guys were just saying, there's only one real answer, and that's there's Urban Meyer. I mean, you heard him on the shows before that he really respects the history and everything Nebraska is all about. With all the new facilities, the coaching staff that is here, he's a very intelligent coach, and I'm thinking he'd retain a lot of these coaches that we do have, and he knows how to build a winner. He just knows how. Are we really counting him out? Is he out of the equation?
I don't know. And I'm just being honest with you. I don't know. I'd like to think that Trev's talked to him. I'd like to think that Trev's maybe gauged his interest.
I would hope so.
I'd like to think that Urban can go hire an elite staff or keep who he thinks is really good that's here.
And he's going to build something and then hand it off to the next coach, which Mickey could be learning under. And after that, boom.
The reality is this, and Bob, thanks for the phone call, bud. Appreciate you tuning in. Mickey's 54, 55 years old, right? Mickey's either going to get an offer somewhere or he's going to get an offer to stay, one of the two, and he's got to make a decision with what am I best at? Do I want to take a run at being a head coach again? Am I built for that? Or do I want to be a position coach, get paid really well to be an assistant, and oh yeah, my bread and butter is recruiting, and just go help be a part of this process in Lincoln? That's a Mickey call. If you're Arizona State, yeah, you make a phone call to Mickey and you try and get him down wearing Sun Devil maroon. But Mickey's a guy that is, I just think, we're getting way ahead. Let's land somebody that's here for 5 to 7 years before worrying about the transition process.
And to your point, let's worry about getting to 7-5 before you worry about 10-2 or 11-1. And it should be noted.
Who's the guy to take over? The guy that's going to turn 60 or 58? You know,
if Trev hires a guy who's happy with 7-5 or 8-4, he has shot too low. That is not enough expectations for a place like Nebraska. But that is the first step to getting back to where you not only think you should be, but where you, in reality, based on resources, should be.
Well, between recruiting and what this place has, yeah, absolutely. Who's with us?
We got Moose on the line, but we're up against the break here.
Right. Moose, hang on. I'm not going to short you. Moose, hang on and tell me about your delicious salsa that needs to be part of Thanksgiving dinner. Hang on the line, Moose. We'll get to your calls. We'll read some more emails. What do you think? Did Nebraska get Stoops paid, or was that Auburn? We'll discuss that. I think we're all warming to Urban.
Fickle, maybe? Should we talk Fickle?
That's it. Yes, we're going to get to Fickle as well. Fickle is right there, and that's the question.
That's who the flight trackers would lead you to believe.
Is he the wild card here, or is he just the wishful thinking?
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
More as the carousel spins. 25 minutes away, Mr. Blackshirt Charlie McBride joins us on Hail Varsity. Jay Moore on the way. Moose going to weigh in, 466-3776. Moose, go ahead, bud.
Afternoon, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. Loving the weather. Fickle, I'd be in on Fickle for sure. However, I'd be in on. I mean, I trust the process. I trust Trev. I don't think everybody does. I don't think I'm
breaking any news when I say it blows my mind the amount of experts that are on social media.
It's kind of fun, though, man. I mean, grain of salt, got to take it with a grain of salt because nobody's been able to truth serum Trev right now to talk out loud.
Well, and it's fun until it's not. Like I have to put the phone down at times because I get a little
nauseated.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Yeah, I'll go with nauseated. Sickle, interestingly enough, kind of got his whole head coaching start in sort of the same position Mickey finds himself, right?
Yep, with Ohio State during the Tressel departure and pre-Urban. Yeah.
Right. So he's had to, pay his dues and experience the ropes that way. I'm interested I'm sure you've heard this same thing. I've heard it from a couple of people who I trust and who, know people or have a kid on the team or what have you. The whole Urban's going to be the guy, groom Mickey to take over in 4 years. And I don't necessarily buy it, but man, I've heard it from a couple of people who normally seem to have their fingers on the pulse of the program. So I have to raise my hand whenever Elijah is talking about. It's interesting to see those people who were anti-Urban when it was first mentioned and then have sort of backed off of that stance. I definitely find myself and I got to think Urban doesn't want his lasting legacy to be the Jacksonville memories.
No, Urban wants to come back into the Big Ten, beat Ohio State, give it to Michigan, beat who he's usually beat, and he's always had an affinity for Nebraska and Coach Osborne, and to bring it back, that would stroke Urban's ego so well.
And to my point last segment about ego, as you said, confidence, whatever you want to put it at, competitiveness. It comes down to if somebody wants a Nebraska job, it's because they want to prove they're the best out there. Mm-hmm. And that's what Urban would come down to. This does not come down to can Nebraska go pull Urban. I think Trev can pay Urban what it needs. Is does Urban have that fire within him to prove that he is still the best?
Totally.
That's what the question
I absolutely does. And let's be straight, he pretty much got told to take a hike by SC last year. Because I guarantee he was angling for the SC job.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're right. I thought he was too. I was surprised that he didn't jump at that. So
I think they told him no.
Yeah, right. I think you're right. And I think that I was ready to tell him no myself. And then we've had to experience this. And to hear words uttered like worst Power 5 team in the country the last 5 years record-wise, like I just would have never, in my wildest dreams growing up in the 80s and 90s, that we'd ever find ourselves here. But here we are, and we don't have room to be pushing somebody aside because of some missteps.
Well, Moose, appreciate you tuning in, brother. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you guys, happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Good to hear from Moose. Yeah, the 9-4s and 7-3s, and man, Ohio State really took it to Nebraska on national TV. None of that was fun as a Nebraska fan when you're used to what was incredible. But, man, how you've fallen down. And Brennan nailed it. The season would at least be somewhat tolerable if you can pull off an upset Friday. Mm-hmm. I mean, as bad as it's been, you're in a 5-game tailspin right now. You've had a chance to win some of those ball games. Who's with us?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. So just kind of piggyback on what the last caller said about, like, fans on social media claiming to be experts and claiming to be like Scott Van Pelt when they say the most basic things, I will say, so many Nebraska fans and, Nebraska haters would always say at the beginning of the season, oh, Nebraska's not going to be good this year, thinking they're so smart for saying such a basic statement, which, I personally think even if Frost was still the coach, it would still be the same result, honestly. Although with Mickey, there just seems to be a little bit more effort and just, a little bit of bad luck, I will admit, and circumstance, too. Let's be honest. It's not an easy circumstance for Mickey Joseph, but, I think it's going towards some of the fans who think they're really smart for predicting, Nebraska was going to be bad this season, and them thinking they're a sportscaster on ESPN. And and like the people listening who think that, I'm sorry, you're not smart, you're stupid.
Well,
it doesn't take a genius to say that stuff.
The sportscasters on ESPN here, we were talking about should he take the over on Nebraska wins preseason. So
no, and we were all like, do they find 7? Does it save him? I'm so sorry. Take a drink. It was so wrong. It was so off. Do they get to 6? 466-377. I mean, Jonathan, thanks, man. Appreciate you calling. It's fun, though. It's fun to play expert. It's fun to throw it out there. Everyone's got an opinion. It's all good. Twitter allows you to do whatever the hell you want. Good, bad, ugly. So if your barber's cutting Trev's hair, or your neighbor Spurrier did have that cable installed and has an insight to who it's going to be, let it fly. Well, and get some likes. Feel good about yourself. It's fine.
To defend ourselves for a second here, I think we can all look at this season, though, and understand that the offensive line, the lines of scrimmage, are really what hindered Nebraska this season. And I don't think you should go into a season expecting that guys regress from the year before, especially with the new position coach, and I'm specifically looking at the offensive line. It's a position group that's regressed from last season and has gotten worse, and the standard in college football is as a guy gets older, as he spends more time in the program, he's going to get better. That didn't happen. That hasn't happened for a couple years.
You've not seen guys in the program get better. You've seen Cam Taylor-Britt. You've seen JoJo Doman.
Cam Jurgens.
You've seen a handful of guys get better. You've not seen it on the offensive line. You do have instances where guys have come back, like a Bando, like a Hickson, like a Piper. All right. And if you're looking at Pro Football Focus, Ben Hart's graded out the highest this year. A guy that really hasn't had a chance to settle in and just develop because he's been flipping 48 positions. Corcoran. I think Corcoran can be a good O-lineman. He's got to settle in and have an off-season of not being hurt, find a position, and stick to it. He's not had that to defend him a little bit. Do we have time? No, we don't. Let's hang on.
Yeah, well, Pete, hang on the line for us.
Yeah, Pete, we'll take your call. Get to more of your phone calls here, 466-3776. Real quick, when we talk Fickle, is Cincinnati, as they transition to the Big 12, I mean, they're a year removed from the playoff. I believe they're fighting for an ACC title, AC title.
I believe they're
them and Tulane. They're 8-2 or 9-2 overall.
Mm-hmm. And they got Tulane this weekend.
Yeah, so they're there. Does he want to keep doing his thing in Cincinnati, or does he want to move up to the Big 10?
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Monday edition, Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hail Varsity Radio presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Pete, floor is yours. Go for it.
How you doing today?
Good, Pete. Thanks for the call.
I could be wrong. I didn't see much of the second half, but I was told in the first half, Casey was running the ball and opening up that offense.
Casey was running for his life.
But he was running forward and making yards.
Yeah, no, he was a willing runner on Saturday, for sure.
Did he run much in the second half?
He again ran for his life. He tried, yes. But not quarterback designed runs.
Well, the last game is coming up. I wonder if they're going to turn him loose and everybody's going to put it on the line. We need to put it on the line. We don't have that killer instinct, and you got to develop that. And I think you develop that in practice. But we're in way too many close games, and we always come out the losing side of it. And I think that goes back to coaching and practicing.
Pete, don't disagree with how it's gone practice-wise. It's been better with Mickey, but it's still hard to undo years of a mentality in seven games. But yeah, if they'd have more, and Pete, thanks for the call. If there's more quarterback run aside from the occasional red zone read keep, then maybe you get a couple of first downs if you're calling some quarterback run. When that 1-2 punch quarterback running back in a zone read scheme may not get you a ton of yards, but at least it's a change up.
Something that you make the defense think, make the defense have to account for the quarterback. And my take on Casey's more willingness to run was, I think it was a guy who walked on senior day who was going balls to the wall, giving effort.
Sure.
And it probably felt pretty fresh after the past couple weeks of not taking hits, where he felt good. And then, oh man, I started taking some hits this game. Maybe it's most advantageous for me to stay in the pocket and deliver the ball downfield as opposed to the alternative that we could have back
He's
there.
a warrior, the way he'd always step up in the pocket. Let's go to Nicholas. Nicholas, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Hey, buddies. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, actually. I just wanted to hit on the topic of, Urban and kind of what the 50-50 split in Nebraska seems to be. I've been on Urban's train since it kind of took off. And, the guy, with all of his setbacks, yeah, he's made some mistakes. But, football is football, and mistakes are made quite often. But it's the man behind the mistake willing to correct that and move forward. I think Urban's legacy would be very much solidified if he came here. Nebraska's a special place. Not to just, us Nebraskans, but, we owned the 80s. We owned the 90s. We had a brand. We stuck to that brand. We built on that brand. And ever since the Peterson and fiasco, and our brand has basically been non-existent. So if anybody could create a brand for us again, it would be somebody like Urban that has his brand. It's worked, consistently worked. And something like Nebraska, we need somebody special to turn this around, because it's not just going to happen overnight with an okay name guy or an okay, just a so-so coaching hire. We need to go for the top.
Nebraska's brand has withstood 20 years of constant.
So what is that brand now, Sipple? What is our brand?
Well, I'm not Sipple. I'm Schmidt, but
sorry.
That brand is still a blue blood. But it's aging, and it's damaged.
And Urban's brand is excellence. Had a friend do it to his football camp. He broke down the camp by saying, none of you are good enough to be Ohio State football players. Thanks for coming.
Pay the man as you leave. Hey, Thanks for the phone call, Nicholas. Appreciate it. Hour 2, Charlie McBride on the way.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. We'll spend time with Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt, here in a moment. Vet chiming in from Newcastle, Nebraska. Vet, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yes. With the coaching change, I just got a couple questions. What other Power 5 coach could do any better than Mickey with the hand he was dealt?
Nobody.
And what do you? Couple things is Mickey. We should remember. What about recruiting? What happens then? And he's got the room with the players. He has a strong bond to relate to the kids. And this isn't going to, turn overnight. Whether you got Urban Meyer or any of the other coaches, because all the other coaches that you have mentioned, they all have flaws too, but getting the kids to play for him, what is going to happen if Mickey doesn't get the job or we don't retain Mickey?
Well,
and I think that's something we need to think about.
Vet, thanks for the phone call. Mission one is to retain Mickey, all right, if Mickey wants to be retained. 2, you're absolutely right. The hand that was dealt was the worst poker hand ever, and you're still in the game. And you've seen good effort. You just haven't seen wins. I think the problem with Mickey has been some management things, be it in-game or offensive coordinator management. And we don't know the inside True Hollywood story there. But if I'm head coach playing armchair Monday guy, I figure out a way to run the football successfully and burn some clock. I know they called run plays, but it looked a lot different result-wise than maybe it could have. And that's just it. Nebraska's never been able to run the football when they've had to run the football.
When the defense knows it's coming.
When the defense knows it's coming. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, longtime Husker legend, Charlie McBride. Coach, rumor has it you blew out some birthday candles yesterday.
I did.
79 again.
I'm 41.
I love it. 41, Coach. Wonderful. So since you're so young, you want to come back here and help out a program that needs some help, brother?
Well, I can still... Yeah, I could probably do a good job running the ball.
I know you'd call the play anyway. That's great. Ran into your dear friend Grant Wistrom Saturday. He said he had a chance to talk with you, and that was really cool. He said that he had fun chatting with you.
Yeah, he did. Did he have Charlie with him?
No, he had...
His daughter?
No, Charlie was not with him. He had a player... From Missouri, his defensive lineman he's coaching. That's a really good ball player.
Down in Springfield, yeah,
down in Springfield.
Yeah, he's only. I think he's going to be a senior next year.
Mm-hmm. Just a junior this year. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's been nice and cold here, and kind of like, but no wind.
Well,
so you save it for the game.
Well, yeah, you'll save it for the game. Let's dive into last Saturday and this Friday. Man, it looked good until it didn't. What'd you think of the Wisconsin-Nebraska ball game?
Well, I thought, I thought we'd win the game. I mean, I really did, and then at the end of the game, things didn't happen right. But it seemed like. It just seems like the same old thing. And whatever it is, we just don't finish. And somehow, and we just can't make a play on defense. I looked at the turnover things, and we're really, low in the conference in turnovers. And, and that's one of the things that, you have to do. And, I think we were second from the bottom in the Big Ten in turnovers. So, we haven't had enough of them. And those are the things, the big plays on defense, when you get in a situation like that, are really important. And we just couldn't come up with one.
Coach, why do you think Nebraska's had a hard time finishing? Not just this year, not just Saturday, but it's been an ongoing issue.
Well, I think a lot of times that you can blame it on 1,000 things, but sometimes when you're recruiting a kid's a pretty good player, but you need to really be sure that you're recruiting kids that are well coached, and sometimes some are not. And I know that when I look back on some of the stuff we had some kids that were really good. For example, good tacklers. I mean, really good. And they came here, they were good, and so it's part of your high school background and things like that you have, and a lot of times it's a speed factor too. I talked to a coach the other day who happens to be a head coach, and I asked him if he'd seen us play, and he said a couple of 3 times he saw it. Saw us play, but not the whole games. But he said, you don't have much speed. And, that's kind of an observation from, not an opposing coach, but a coach that, is a Division V, one of the Big 5 conferences. So he felt like that was really one of the factors of, our kids. He gave me a list of things. I kind of had talked to him before, and he made it a point to look at some stuff. So, there were some things that, were, and that's where he thought too, that when we check kids out, we need to be sure that, they're, how well coached they are and things like that. So, it's not as important on offense as it is on defense, because a lot of the offensive stuff is natural ability, that put you there. Defensively, it's a little more of a instinctive person. Mm-hmm. 15's a heck of a player.
Yeah, he is.
And he's the. When you look at him, I don't know how many tackles he made, but he was in on. He was there at the ball, or he was in on the tackle, or he made the tackle every time. I mean, it was. He's just instinctive, and he's tough, and he's smart, and he's got good speed, but he's all over the place. If you really look at him, those are the kind of kids you have to look for. You can't look for twos. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And you have to discipline yourself to. Some kids you just like. Oh, I like this kid a lot. I'd love to help him out, but he doesn't run fast enough. And I know one of the things we did, was hard when we really disciplined ourselves to a speed factor. I mean, we had some good linebackers and some good defensive ends and everything, but they just couldn't run fast enough. And they were going to good schools and they were doing all this stuff. And thing is, you never heard of them again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we didn't make mistakes, but it's really important that you do those things when you're recruiting. And I think it depends a lot on the head coach. And and I look at it right now, the recruiting part of it, and I haven't seen a defensive lineman in 2 years. And I've seen a lot of wide receivers and a lot of that stuff, and I know even Tom was a little disappointed in himself, when he got done coaching, that one of the things he said, he didn't feel like he spent enough time with the defense. And I think, if you have an offensive guy, you really need to, your coordinator needs to be sure that it's, even keel boat where it's not all offensive, I think that's important.
Charlie McBride's with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, you kind of alluded to it there at that last answer, but I want to get your take. Generally speaking, when you look at this current team, is this a coaching staff that needs more talent to make it happen, or is this talent that needs a better coaching staff and better development to make it happen? I know that the correct answer is probably a combination of both, but generally speaking, when you look at this team, does it need more talent, or does it need better development of that talent?
Well, I think the coaching change had a lot to do with it. I think once and Mickey went to a point where he, moved the defensive coordinator to safeties because he's used to having two defensive backfield coaches, in the game, and left the linebacker coach or the defensive line coach to take the outside linebackers. That's impossible. That's totally impossible. And that's hurting the pass rush a lot because they're not getting reps on pass rush. In their group work, they're splitting time and they're doing things, and they're having trouble reading blocks and things like that. And there's just a ton of things, but it's not all his fault. He's got more than he can handle, and it's just not right, to even think that to be able to do that. I talked to Tony Samuel, he couldn't believe it. So there isn't a team in the country that doesn't have an outside defensive end or outside linebacker coach, and sometimes you can't even work with the inside and outside linebackers together. Sometimes, it's pretty hard to do because you have different drops, you have different reads, you have different, when you're on the corner, you have to teach that outside guy the angles of the guard pulling. Is he kicking me out? Is he hooking me? Is the back lined up? How's he blocking? Doing all these different things. And you have to work on those in practice. So when you do that, you eliminate the other guys. Mm-hmm. You can't do two things at once. So there's guys standing around.
Coach, want to get your thought on a name that's out there and might be more of a wild card name, but talk to me a little bit about what you know about Luke Fickell. He's at Cincinnati, was at Ohio State. and he's a guy that would fit well. We all think in Lincoln. I don't know, as they move to the Big 12, if he'd be ready to leave Cincinnati.
Well, I think he's an excellent coach. I really do. I think he's got a background that's as good as anybody, and he's taken Cincinnati, and I know the situation there. They were kind of a second-class program up till I'd say the 85 or 90 in there. And they started getting better, a little bit, put more into it. It was pretty much a basketball school.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to games down there between Cincinnati and Miami when I was a kid, So, they were a Mid-American Conference team. And, I don't know if you remember a guy named Joe Morrison that played for the Giants, but he was one of their running backs.
Joe Morris, yeah.
So anyway, but I think that he is. If he was the coach, I would be pretty excited myself.
I don't know if that's truth or rumor or fairy tale or what, but But I just look at the coaches that have come from Cincinnati: Brian Kelly, D'Antonio. They all went to bigger programs. I think Fickell won at Ohio State, got passed up on Notre Dame. I don't know if he's ready to jump or not. He turned down Michigan State last year. So
I can tell you this, that if he did take the job, for example, and I would say that there's been a lot of thought and a lot of talk to people about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's examined the thing thoroughly, and he's been through some things that, and in his coaching experience that would lead him in that direction. I would, but he also is a guy that is not jumping on a job just to jump on a job, and it's fun to make money, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think he's that kind of person, to be honest with you. If you're a head coach, you make so much, but he's not one of these guys that's, that it's going to go out of his way to try to make more money.
Right. It's about fit and challenge, probably. Coach, we'll tell you to have a great, great Turkey Day and cheer hard on Friday, okay?
I'll do it. Friday's going to be tough duty, but you never know what's going to happen. And if somebody thinks they're better than somebody else, they got a problem.
Yeah, that's true. The overconfidence can be a problem. Coach, we appreciate you much. Enjoy that turkey and stuffing, okay?
Okay, thanks, guys. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care, Coach.
Okay, bye-bye.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Listen, I don't know if we're just throwing a dart with the Fickell name, but I loved his perspective on Fickell for sure, and really good insight. Phone lines for you at 466-3776. We'll spend some time with Jay Moore. Our dear friend Lars Anderson is on a heater.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, a Monday reaction. Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa week. Coaching search and some NFL helping us to break it down. Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay, how was the weekend?
Well, it was good. I had some family actually come in town. I hadn't seen them in a while. They live down in Austin, Texas, so they came up for the game, and got to hang out with them for a little bit on Friday night. And other than the results of the game, it was a good weekend.
How many times do you get from either strangers or distant family or just people in general, do you get folks walking up to you saying, what the hell's happened to Nebraska football?
I feel like it's happened more this year. It might just because I'm more of a familiar face being on Big Red Wrap-Up on Tuesday nights, but I tell you what, it's happened more and more just with people just like How do you feel? What do you see? Who do you feel the next head coach is going to be? It's definitely increased, and like I keep telling people, I've just like all of us, we just have become more and more numb to the situation that's we've dealt with the last 5-6 years at Memorial Stadium. It's a sad situation, but you get numb to it because you're tired of being disappointed, and there was just another disappointment again on Saturday, unfortunately.
It was, and you can't make it up where you look at how it went for 3 quarters and then the deciding quarter. And Jay, as a defensive guy, it just isn't fair where you do your job for 3 quarters, but you are so exhausted that you can't find a way to make a stop the final 2.5 minutes. And, oh, by the way, they get it at the 50. I mean, it's just Murphy's Law for them.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating because they have gotten better, throughout the season. And I know they struggled during, when they played Purdue, but they've gotten better. In the offense, you can't say that for. The offense has gotten worse. I know not having Casey for a couple games there was a major issue. But, however, the offensive line has not gotten better. They've arguably got worse throughout the year. And then you look at, the changes that the defense has made, and obviously with firing Chenander after the Oklahoma game, and they've incrementally gotten better. They're playing better up front, not as many missed tackles. So they've obviously made some tweaks here and there, but it has to be extremely frustrating. I would be as a defensive player just because you can't get any sort of help whatsoever. And that is, I've been there. I have definitely have been there where you're doing enough. You're doing more than enough to win some football games, and you'd like to think that your offense can pick up some first downs here or there to sustain drives, take some time off the clock, so on and so forth. But that just hasn't been the case. It has. It's been frustrating to watch. I can only imagine what they're feeling. I know it's a team game, and I know the defense is probably saying, "Hey, we should have stopped them in the fourth quarter, gotten a stop to keep them from getting those." What was it? They scored 12 points in the fourth quarter there. So I know they're probably kicking themselves, thinking they got to get a stop. But again, you're holding teams to they weren't able to do much. They got a few runs here or there, and they're going to do that. Just with the sheer amount of the firepower that they have up front. And I know Wisconsin wasn't the best Wisconsin, but they still come off the football pretty well. They still know how to block and scheme the run game. So quite puzzling that you just somehow just can't put a game plan, something to get your offensive line to have some sort of success. That's what I scratch my head at, and I think that's part of Whipple's stubbornness is, he's not going to tweak things and change things. He's going to do it the way he wants to. But you got to be able to put your guys in the best situation to win football games. And I just wish, I look at early success we had against Minnesota in the type of runs we were doing. We had guys pulling and tight ends, and I just didn't see a whole lot of that against Wisconsin. I wish again, it's two different teams, but I think you could somehow create some creativity here just to give your guys a little bit more of success, especially on first down. That's so crucial and important in starting off your offensive drives. But it's unfortunately, they haven't held up the end of the bargain, this year. And if Nebraska could have just got one fourth down there, we had the ball just under 5 minutes, I'd like Nebraska chances to win that thing out. But instead, Anthony Grant gets bludgeoned as soon as he gets the handoff, and then boom, luckily he was able to get some yards back on second down. But you just can't. You got to get some success in the run game, and whether it's, I know the offensive line struggled heavily this year, but somehow create something for them to have some success, and they just haven't been able to do it. And now we're looking at another 3-1 season back to back, and and going to Iowa City, with our tail between our legs.
Jay Moore's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Jay, that's where I want to look next, to Iowa City. It's on a short week. And with this Husker football team sitting right now at 3-8, it was a demoralizing loss on Saturday. Are you worried about a ready-for-the-offseason type performance on Friday afternoon?
No, I'm not worried about that at all. I think Mickey has the ear of this team still and I think they're still going to fight. And I'm never too concerned with that because you are still, whether you're playing for the N on the side of the helmet, the name on the back, you are putting yourself out there, and you got to have some sense of pride, which I think a majority of these guys still have pride in what they do. It's just they just can't somehow get the job done. So I'm not too concerned with the energy and the effort. There's been some energy issues, effort issues, I think, early on, but I think those got resurrected once Scott was fired, and you saw a new energy, a little more emotion going forward. So not going to be too concerned with that. They have a chance to play spoiler. Obviously Iowa win. They have to get the West again. Hopefully they can go in there and battle. I mean, early lines, Iowa's only a 9-point favorite or 10-point favorite. So if somehow Nebraska can get some things going offensively against a really, really good Iowa defense, I'm putting on that Minnesota film and just like, hey, what and how did they get Ibrahim, to get 260 against Iowa's defense? I know he gassed him for a couple big runs, but I'm telling you what, I'm installing that run game, whatever they're doing, that Minnesota got against Iowa. I'm installing that play and saying, okay, Iowa, have you resurrected this issue, or is that just the Minnesota's offensive line just being a little bit better than Iowa's defensive? I don't know, but I know I'm going there and I'm looking there first to get that run game going on that style of what they had Ibrahim doing, and then so yeah, I'm not too concerned at all about the energy and effort. I think it will be there. We got one game left. If you can't give it all what you got with the last game here and being on Black Friday and being one of a few games on national television, I would question exactly if that was the issue, then there's bigger fish to fry, I think, than showing up on a Black Friday against Iowa and questioning their effort.
Jay Moore is with us on Hail Varsity Radio, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up at JMoore44. Back on Twitter, so give Jay Bird a follow. Jay, it's another week and maybe the last week of the coaching search for Trev in Nebraska. Give me the one name that is in Jay's top desk drawer. What's the one name you would go with?
Well, I don't know. I don't think Aranda was my guy early on. I don't think that's going to happen.
So who's further down the invisible list?
Yeah, man, I tell you what, it's hard. I just don't think there's a home run hire, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And that's totally because we definitely thought Scott was the hire, and we know how that worked out. Sometimes you think it's the guy. I've been saying it. I really like, and I know people hate this. I would be totally fine with a Jeff Monken hire.
Okay.
I am totally fine. I know people are like, why you got? But I firmly believe for Nebraska to get back to where it needs to be, and I'm not saying winning national championships. I'm saying just being relevant in the Big Ten and winning the West and having a chance to play in the Big Ten championship is we have to develop a mindset, and you have to know who you are week in and week out. And that's going to, you have to develop that ideology, and then it's physicality, discipline, running the football, all these things, and that is what Monken's been doing at Army, and I think that would fit very, very well. Now, some people are like, well, he can't recruit. He doesn't know how to recruit to a Big Ten school. So what? You hire someone to do it. I think he can adjust. There's so many other things. I think some people get so. I've made the analogy before, like, hey, people are worried about other things that don't matter, recruiting, NIL. Let's get back to building our fundamental and our base of who we are and how we're going to win in the Big Ten. Because we haven't done that since we've been in the Big Ten, since Bo's been fired, essentially. We had some wins with Bo. But how are we going to do this? It's understanding who you are, have an identity, committing to that identity, and then that identity is running football, being physical, being disciplined. And I think that's what Monken's done very, very well, Army. And rightfully so, because you have guys that are, obviously very high character, disciplined individuals. You go to the academy and you're servicing, the United States of America. So I think that's one thing. And so that's where I'm not saying, I wouldn't say he's my 1A, but I like that hire more and more because I think that's what Nebraska needs. I don't think Nebraska needs super sexy. I don't think. I think Nebraska needs someone that's going to come in and understands who they are as a coach and who they want to be, and that's what they're going to do. And that's, I mean, even like a Kleiman at K-State, I think fits that mold very, very well as well, because he knows who he is, what he wants to be, and that mold fits very well in the Big Ten West. You don't need to score. I mean, it's nice to have these high-powered offenses, but you know what? You play good defense. You run the football. You control the clock. You play your situational football very, very well. You win all three phases. You perform very, very well. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, and it works. You don't have to come here and recreate the wheel. So I want someone that understands that, and it's just going to get down to business and understanding that you went up front offensively, on the offensive line, defensive line. You start there. You bring in some other guys, on the wide receivers and the quarterbacks and DBs, but you start there. You put all your efforts into developing your offensive line, defensive line, everything else will fall into place. So whether that's a Kleiman, that's a Monken, if that's a Bill O'Brien, if that's a Leipold, if that's you go down the list. I don't know, but that's why I say there's no exact perfect hire. I just want someone that is going to come in and address those issues that I think that's what we've been missing.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Jay Moore is with us. Jay, you mentioned Leipold, you mentioned Kleiman. What's it say to you about Nebraska if both those guys are just, hey, I'm good, thanks for the offer, Trev, we really respect Nebraska, but I like what we got going on down south?
Yeah, well, it's tough. It's a little disheartening if that would be the case, and I'm just saying it easily could be. Mm-hmm. But I think some coaches kind of they like what they're where they're at, and they like what they're building, and I think there's something to that. I think good coaches aren't necessarily trying to hop all around, trying to take the next best deal or the more the take more money. I think that if they would turn down Trev, it tells me that they like what they're building and they like what they got going, and that's okay, and that's totally fine. And I get it. So it would be a little disheartening, but it also, I mean, it's Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska is it's a big job, and it is a tough one because this is the only show in town. It's hard. It's hard when you mess up. People take notice, and there's tons of TV shows and talk shows and radio shows and podcasts that are dissecting every inch of your every decision, everything you do. So it's going to take a special person to kind of remove himself from that and not to get caught up in all that and go to work. And if they, if guys say no, so be it. And but you want guys that are all in. You don't want guys that kind of are half in, half out, man. You want guys who want the job and actually want to get down to business and grind, and they don't want to it can't be a money thing. It's in my opinion. I think that'll be somewhat of a deciding factor, but I think you got to have guys that they're going to take pride in turning this thing around first and foremost. And the money is a secondary thing, and it's a nice reward if they do turn it around. But I want guys, I want a guy that's here to be able to say, okay, I'm ready to. I know what Nebraska was, and I want to get them back to where it is and where it needs to be. And we'll see. We'll probably know here in about 4 or 5 days who that guy's going to be.
Jay, a name that heated up over the weekend was Urban Meyer, and it's interesting to see the inverse relationship as Nebraska's results suffer. It feels like the desire for Urban goes up among Husker Nation, and it all kind of stemmed from a flight from Columbus to Lincoln that occurred on Sunday morning. And it should be noted, I'm pretty sure Urban Meyer currently lives in Florida, so take that with a grain of salt. But what's your take on just as these results have suffered, the desire for Urban has gone up? What's your take on Urban?
I love Urban. I mean, that's the one home run hire, in my opinion. I would take him. I'd be ecstatic. Now, I think one thing is he probably was not going to be here for, 10-plus years. You hire Urban with the expectations that you keep Mickey, and you kind of you let Mickey learn from Urban, and you let Mickey eventually take this thing over, i.e. Ryan Day, at Ohio State. So I would be all for it. I don't. People are going to talk about his, his character and all that stuff, but I mean, listen, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to win. And so that's what I want Nebraska to get back to, is winning and winning the right way. And he knows how to do that. He's done it everywhere, obviously except at Jacksonville, which at the NFL and NCAA is way, it's two worlds apart. So I don't put too much stock in that. I'd be all for it. I would love it. That's the one hire that gets me going, but I'm not trying to get myself there because I think it's still a long shot. But if somehow it happened, man, I'd be singing Trev's praises, and let's just I couldn't wait till next August when that Thursday night is we play Minnesota. So I would have no issue with Urban Meyer coming to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Jay, let's wrap with the NFL. Your old buddy Ndamukong Suh back in the league, back with Philly. You've got him and Linval Joseph and Fletcher Cox, and Indy found a way in the closing moments. I should say Philly found a way on the road at Indy to bounce back. But your thoughts on Suh back in the league, and your thoughts on Suh landing in Philly. They're already really good, and man, adding him part-time or for a handful of plays seems like genius by the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, not surprised by Suh's move. If you're going to come out and go do this and put the pads back on, in the middle of the year, you're going to want to go to a team that has a chance of winning it all. And then by winning it all, I mean the Super Bowl. And Philly's right there. I mean, they've obviously had a misstep last week against Washington and almost got beat against Indy. We're just kind of getting to that time of year where, teams are getting a little banged up, and teams are you start to figure out who you are and how you go about things. So, love the move for him. Love the move for Philly. You get probably a Hall of Fame defensive lineman in your stable for, the next, third of the season. Mm-hmm. So good move by them. And you see these moves. We saw it last year with the Rams, making some late season moves. You've seen it already at the 49ers making some mid to late season moves. So teams are just trying to do what they can to try to shore up their position and making a move here late in the season and once they get into the playoffs. And that's what Philly's trying to do. They're trying to shore up their run defense, and San Francisco got McCaffrey trying to add some more firepower. See where OBJ could potentially land, but you'll see teams continually make moves here towards the end of the year, especially teams who feel like they have a chance to move on and get to the Super Bowl. They'll do whatever they have to. So not surprised at all with Suh landing with the Eagles.
Jay Moore with us. Big Red Wrap-Up. Catch him Tuesdays, and follow him on Twitter. Back on Twitter at JMoore44. Jay Bird, best to you and the fam. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Yep, you bet. Thanks, fellas.
Gotta love Jay Moore, spending time with him, getting his take. Broncos been the name today. We hit on that 2 weeks ago with Coach Barnett. We'll reset that tomorrow. Open phones till 6. You want to sneak back in, you're welcome to do it. Talked a lot of Urban. We got some thoughts on Fickle with Coach McBride. And who knows? Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Monday, can't get here soon enough, presumably. Then, of course, you got the Sunflower connection here with Leopold and Kleiman, two names that you just wonder if they're good where they're at or they'd want to take the Nebraska gig on. Red Zone tickets selling fun since 2001. Huge. Wow, win by Creighton today. You want to see Creighton basketball? Red Zone tickets can help make that happen. Husker volleyball. How about some NFL action? Theater or concerts? Red Zone tickets are there. They are local. They are Omaha proud for you, and an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. They've earned that 20 years of excellence and a 100% guarantee on all your orders. You'll receive authentic tickets and experiences you'll never forget. Cross that item off your bucket list. Create the memories that do last a lifetime. RedZoneTickets.com. Log on today, RedZoneTickets.com. You are invited to check us out on Black Friday, noon to 2 from Iowa City. The Marriott rooftop tailgate. We're there getting you ready for Nebraska, Iowa. Back to wind down on Monday, next on Hail Varsity.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Monday. Big thanks to Jay Moore and Charlie McBride, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hail Varsity presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Should be an awesome Class A title game tonight. Gretna, West Side, the sequel. We'll see how it shakes out. Two just stud quarterbacks, great coaches, tremendous teams. And tomorrow we'll spend some time with Mitch Sherman, proud Gretna resident. Get his thoughts on Iowa, Nebraska. Scott Docterman Wednesday with us. Also, perhaps a Searles sighting. Coach Barnett will squeeze in as well. And Andy Markowski, the pride of Ord, going to be with us tomorrow to hit on some hoops. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelts. It saves lives, and it prevents injuries only if properly worn. Buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So we did quite a bit of carousel. We spared you the Wisconsin-Nebraska full Monty reaction. We took that poison on Saturday. But the long and short, fourth quarter sucked. Moving on. Is it going to hurt worse Black Friday? We will build ourselves up to how they can win, and here's how they're going to lose.
Well, the question is what's the care level around Husker Nation for this game on Friday?
The care level is to get Friday here and gone so you can have a coaching announcement.
Well, I think the care level is to spoil Iowa, make it in backdoor to the Big Ten championship game. But if you don't do that, I don't think people are going to be distraught. You're going to go, oh, well, that was expected.
You can't go get housed.
No, you can't go get housed, but I don't think Husker Nation has high expectations for this game unless you can somehow pull off upsetting this Iowa team. I mean, I'll call it an upset because they're heading you in Big Ten West and spoil it. That'd be a win for Nebraska if you spoil their chances of making the Big Ten championship game. But if you lose, I don't think anyone is going to lose any sleep over it.
It'd be hilarious. It would absolutely be hilarious. You let out a primal scream like you haven't heard since January day night of 1995 in this town. Little different context. You beat Miami in that great frigid night. But you haven't beat Iowa in 100 years. And this is a team on the doorstep with a ton of warts, mainly junior, wearing the headset for Kirk. And you have a defense that I think even Nebraska fans, I think you appreciate. A lot of similarities to 2009. They don't have a Sioux, but they've got some dudes that are just, they figure out a way. They figure out a way with an awful offense, a quarterback that has got to aim for the middle because he's seeing three. And they kind of figured out a run game, and their O-line got a little bit better, but that's crazy how they survived Minnesota. They were in it till the end against Illinois. They get a nuke dropped on them by Ohio State. National writer goes on the offensive with everything but a shiv on Kirk. All right. And he just keeps chewing his gum and even issues an apology for how he handled that. And then they just kind of reel off some wins, and they're working on 9.
Well, they got better throughout a season. Wow.
Right?
Novel concept.
Development. All right, back at 4 tomorrow with Hail Varsity. Take care.